that Brian?
That's Colt.
That was Colton.
Hey, this is Brian. How's everybody doing tonight?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
All right, I'm gonna do roll call. I don't see Roger. Dawn, one of our new members. Maria, one of our new members. Marlene. Brian. Susan, I do not see Susan. And Colton. And Carl is here. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. So I noticed that we have Roger and Susan missing.
Roger did let us know he wasn't going to be able to.
He did.
Mhm.
So do we need to still make a motion to excuse him?
We would make a motion to excuse
We
Roger.
still would, okay. So I'd love to hear a motion.
Make a motion to excuse Roger.
And Susan?
Make a motion to excuse Susan.
Okay, any seconds?
Like the second roll.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we're going to go on to the oath of office for Dawn Williams. Dawn, if you could come up front there.
Tina, we have, generally our city clerk does the.
Oh,
the
we don't
oath of
have our clerk.
office, And I'm not seeing them call in, so perhaps we'll table that for a little bit. and
just
then maybe the
Did
next.
look over there. Yes, we will do it. Thank you, Dawn. We will put that on hold. I don't see any guests with us today, so we can move right on to action items. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes from last meeting? Are there any questions or amendments?
Make a motion to approve.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. They are adopted as written. And our first discussion item is our work plan, our annual work plan. And Jill, are you going to lead that, or how do you want to do this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Tina, board members. Each year, we like to bring back your work program that we set at about this time of the year from the previous year. We like to go over the progress of it, talk about anything that's still outstanding to be done, and then also just a discussion to hear feedback from the board on items that are on there and potential for comments of projects you'd like added to the work program. So we can go over the status provided in kind of a color coded under each item, kind of where we're at with that status. The items that are on there that need to be rolled over into the following year will be rolled over. And then the next step for this is to bring back next year's work plan. And once the park board has had an opportunity for feedback, then it'll go on to the city council to be formally adopted by the city council after your joint meeting. So a couple of the things that are on there that are kind of ongoing, and then some other items, coordination with other groups. This is when we have coordination with the school district and all of the other entities that we work with, and parks and recreation activities. That is ongoing. We've coordinated some this year. We'll continue to do that in the future unless the board had any comments on that. We had the trail naming project for the West Side Trail and the 20th Street ball fields, and that was placed on hold because of the development of that. And then also we're working with the city of Marysville for the connection to the north, so it possibly could affect the name of the trail in that. So that was that's on hold until we bring it back. Adopt a community. We developed the policy for that some time ago, and it's been popular. We've had a lot of volunteers in the city, and that's an ongoing that'll remain on there. the Arts and Parks Foundation. Each year, next year, you'll be looking at electing 2 of your members that will serve on the Arts and Parks Foundation as well. And then volunteering at events. That's something that is ongoing. We'll have some opportunities for you coming up here real soon. Sunset Park is in process. Eagle Ridge was delayed due to the grant. We've been notified by the National Park Service, or through the state, by the National Park Service, that we will be going into contract really soon for Eagle Ridge Park. Centennial Park, that's the pump track. We are working on securing additional space, or the possibility of additional space. So that's been in process. And I will keep you apprised of any word from Puget Sound Energy, which is the parcel next to it. Cedarwood Community Center, we are having feasibility done on the building, and that will determine kind of our next steps. So it is, it's kind of waiting on the feasibility reports to come back in their complete form. Annual events are ongoing. That will appear next year as well. And the RFP, the request for proposal for recreation and special events, was completed for this year. Capital projects, the 20th Street Ball Fields is ongoing. Frontier Heights, the last phase of that is ongoing. In Sunset Park, we talked briefly about, design work is in progress. And then the feasibility is underway for Cedarwood. Code review, that's ongoing. We make changes to Title 10 based on new trends that emerge or needs that happen, and also opportunities that arise. So we did complete the plaques and memorial policy. And then the art and parks, that's ongoing as well, and that will remain on there. So at this time, if the park board, if you have any questions or suggestions, feedback, or additions to next year's project.
Yes, Centennial Park, what is the latest update? I haven't heard really anything from them for a while.
So we're in feasibility. We had a critical area recon done on the property, and it emerged that a lot of the property is a critical area. So looking at the neighboring parcel, which is owned by Puget Sound Energy, we entered into a discussion with Puget Sound Energy of possibly combining or using some of their parcel to supplement what we could offer. And they are working internally on their process to see if they are available and able to enter into an agreement with the city. So it's been on pause based on their feedback. They did get back to us and asked us to provide square footage analysis, and we did that. So we're just waiting for their response.
Okay. And then the other thing too is the plaques and memorials. Am I missing something? Because I don't remember what the final set was. I might have been gone. I don't know.
No worries. I believe it was your May meeting that it was approved by the board. We did have some comment sessions.
Okay.
We discussed it.
Can you send me a final of what it is?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have questions?
A question on
Carl?
Frontier Heights for signage up there that makes it Lake Stevens. I'm sure people know it's a Lake Stevens Park because so many years it was not.
We
And I don't know
do.
if there's any arrows kind of pointing from some of the main streets into it. I think there should be something when you drive into park that says, welcome to the Frontier Heights Lake Stevens Park.
We have a sign on Frontier Circle by the parking lot that's the same monument sign that we have for Blundeen and Davies. And it says Frontier Heights Park with the city's logo on there.
Okay,
We anticipate there'll probably be some more wayfinding once that second phase is rolled out as well. And then the rules sign also has the Lake Stevens logo on it, and it's in
Great.
our new branding.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Colton, Brian, do you have anything, any questions?
None from Colton.
This is Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Are they going to install sprinklers at Frontier Heights Park? It looked like I went there the other day and all of the grass is pretty much completely dead. I know there was a water issue with standing water, but now it seems like with the dry summer, there's no grass left.
There is a email that I updated to council on Frontier Heights that I would be happy to forward to this board to give you the history of Frontier Heights, how it was developed and what led to its current look. And essentially it has to do with decisions during the construction where ground was compacted, not enough topsoil. It leaves a lot of standing water. And then the seed mix that was used wasn't the best mix. There's a lot of clover that was in there. And so those combinations of things have caused some issues. And they are very high-end sprinklers that are installed at the park, but they work in a sequence where if one quits, all of the following ones quit. And so there are some things that we've identified as a department that in the future we can address. And so it's really how do we do that with available budget and in what order? And so one of the questions is with our current design of Frontier Heights, how are we going to address those other grassy type areas? And so it is a conversation that we have going on internally at the department and that council has also commented on and has as a high priority.
Okay. Marlene, do you?
Thank you.
Dawn,
What?
Maria?
No, nothing.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So this is what we did, right? This is not what we're going to do.
Correct. This would be the 2022 work,
What
kind of
we
status
did.
update.
Okay. Remind me, when do we make the one about what we plan to do?
That will be coming up at your, probably a draft of that at your next meeting or the December meeting. It'll
Okay.
be, usually we try to have that done by the end of the year so we can give it to council at your joint meeting.
That's what I was wondering. Well, so at the joint meeting, we'll be discussing what we did and what the plan is going forward.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
If you have any suggestions or any questions or anything you'd like to add to next year's, you feel free, you can do that at this meeting as well.
Okay, all right. What's the other one I had? That was it. So, hearing no other questions, we can go on to our next discussion item, which is the date change for the regular meeting. Joe and Sarah, if you want to talk to that.
So as you know, the Parks and Recreation Planning Board meets on Mondays. It's the second Monday of the month, each month. And we have been, as long as I've known, that's been the date that has been the meeting. We have taken on the mill and expanded some of the offerings of community events. And as such, we've had to stagger some of our staff's schedule. So Mondays are the day that we're the lightest for staff schedules for support for the meeting. So one of the suggestions or one of the possibilities that we wanted to discuss with the park board would be to shift that meeting to the second Wednesday of the month rather than the second Monday. And I think for possible benefits for the board would be Mondays often are holidays and they're often coming back from trips. And so we thought it might actually be something that the board prefers to meet on Wednesdays. And then it would also really mesh well with our staff schedules as well. So it was a discussion point if anyone has any input.
All right. Is anybody opposed to moving it to Wednesday?
You need a motion?
I would like a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the second Wednesday.
Any second?
Okay.
Real
Oh,
quickly,
Got a discussion?
are we talking next month, the first Wednesday, the second Wednesday of next month?
I think we would have to make sure procedurally that that's something, if there's no other steps that we would need to do to accomplish that, then yes, we would opt to do it for the November meeting.
All right, Carl moved. Is there a second? Okay, so it's been, the motion is that we
I'll-
will, oh, yes, go ahead. Brian?
Did you still need a second? I was just gonna say I'd second. I couldn't hear if somebody else had already done it.
All right, thank you. So the motion is that we would move our meeting time from the second Tuesday, the second Monday of the month to the second Wednesday of the month. And all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, we will probably need to check with Susan and make sure that it works for Susan's schedule. The next discussion item is park inventory. This really cool spreadsheet.
So staff has been working very hard over the last couple of months to work on a GIS map that was done by Zach in our IT department, and Jill's helped to make that cool map. It's available online. When you look at the electronic version of this packet where it says click for map, that will take you to an online map that has corresponding numbers to some of these locations, but not all. And that's part of our decision as we move forward is what is a public park versus some of these are really serving a specific neighborhood and maybe shouldn't be advertised to the general public as such. And it'll come back to a lot of how things were written upon development as we start pulling all the paperwork and doing more research. So this is as accurate we could make it at the time that we put it in your packet. It is a draft. It has been sent to other departments to continually review until we can get to a final point. I already do have 2 changes in the version that you are looking at right now. And what we are doing with this inventory is making it how we maintain parks today. And that would look like how we have been maintaining them over the past several years as well. So that is the column with ownership, who owns it, and then responsibility, who is out there maintaining it on a daily basis. So the first change I have is when you come down on the first page, we have it labeled as the Reserve 2, and it shows as map number 12. That responsibility is not currently being done on a daily basis by the Parks Department or the city. And so that one is changing to HOA. And then when you flip to the back side of this map, the one or of the spreadsheet, the one at the very, very top that says the Reserve near or next to 603 125th Street, that very top one is also HOA. The one right below it that says through neighborhood, that is a trail and that is maintained by the city at this time. Those were the only changes we had so far. So the names are the names that we call them internally or based on paperwork document beneath them. Some of these may be names that we don't quite 100% yet know where we came from as we haven't pulled all the documents. And so there may be a naming process in the future as we progress. You'll see a lot of these say near or next to. I believe we will have an addressing project in the future, just simply for GIS and addition to emergency services that can become very important. The acreage is right off of a plot map, so that's not going to move too much. There is a hidden column for linear feet on trails. We just didn't want to overwhelm the document too much for this purpose. So what we're reviewing really is if you have any knowledge about parks right here in the city, on who maintains them and it doesn't reflect accurately on here, or amenities as we go through the checklist, that's what we're looking for is just a review. Did we miss any parks on here that you know of? We're not going for ones that are owned privately and maintained privately. we did put the county ones on here because they're right next to us and they're in our city and they're commonly confused as city parks.
Right.
So we thought that was important to delineate on here.
Yes, I was concerned about these new housing developments. Are they dumping their parks on us? Are we asking for their parks to be part of our program, or how's that working?
That takes place all through the development process.
But I mean, what's the city's goals? To get a small little park, or do they just kind of do it yourself, or?
So it's been the practice of the community development department when they process plats that if it is part of a regional trail, they would ask for some dedication. So you'll see in some of the neighborhoods that if we could put, for instance, right now with the West Side Trail, if someone goes to develop, we're going to ask for that dedication of the space to do to construct the trail. But for the small tot lots, there was a space of time many years ago that was very common, that the government entity, whoever was processing the plat, would ask for a dedication of those parks. Now we're not currently doing that. That's not the trend, because often those parks are not accessible.
So what about the new?
So we're
park
not
on-
asking for those in new developments.
What about that one at Callow Road off Oak Road, OK Road, whatever? I mean, that was given to us, and that is not in any kind of situation where it's bordering another park, county park.
There was a deficit of park space, and that because of the acreage of that park and the fact that it had a parking lot and it could be a destination park serving an area of high density housing, that was a park that the city saw as an opportunity to add to a public system and brought that into
What
the
is
city
what is
ownership.
considered high density though? I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods that have 100 houses, some have 200 houses, some have 50 houses. I mean, is there a set where it's, sit at, in this a high density area with housing? Do we want the park or not the park? Is there any kind of number? Because I
think
know
what-
there's some big housing developments when there's parks in there, we don't have anything to do with them.
Right.
And then there's other ones where we have something to do with it. And I just wonder what the clarification was.
So when we have the park policy or the park plan in our comprehensive plan, we look at levels of service based on distance from the next park and then the size of the park. So currently in that area, there was many parks, M-I-N-I, but there was not any neighborhood or community level parks. So with the acreage size of Oak Hill Park, it is a neighborhood level park or a larger park. So to answer your question, as far as density, it's a zoning designation. And so we in parks look at our level of service and are we able to provide parks within a distance, and the distance varies depending on the park type, in these different areas of the park. So when you see those maps come up, and we say Lundin has a service area of a half a mile or a mile, we want to make sure that every resident in the city of Lake Stevens has access to parks and recreation based on that level of service. So in answer to your question, a mini park serves a very small service area. And what the city has for their level of service in other areas such as accessibility or parking or routes of travel to that park, it may not qualify. So that would be an HOA's park that they provide for their residents, and they maintain and provide upkeep. But it wouldn't be something the city would take on unless we had a deficit or a clear reason or written into a plan that we need park space in that specific area. And then the city is involved in what that park development looks like, rather than what we call top lots then being dedicated through the planning process with maybe equipment that we don't necessarily need in our level of service. So currently we don't ask for those mini parks to be dedicated to the city.
What about the park we're just talking about? Is there a sign there that says Lake Stevens Park? Because
At Oak Hill?
Yeah.
Oak Hill, we do have the monument signs in stock. We had a sourcing issue with getting the monument base, but it does have a City of Lake Stevens park rules sign, and it is on our website of it being a city park.
All these neighborhood parks should have something, because, you know, a lot of people might go by it and think it's you know, public or a residential neighborhood park. And if we're taking care of it, it should say, you know, Lake Stevens Park, whatever, your monument, whatever. So
Mhm.
people know that they can go there freely without have to worry, you know, looking over their shoulder, looking if the residents say, you know, what are you doing in this park?
Sure. Yes, and it does have the large rules sign that has Lake Stevens logo and then the name of the park on it. And then those monument signs should be installed. The footing has been poured for them.
When do they expect to get those up, the rest of the monument plaques?
I would have to check.
Thank you.
I would like some clarification on, when we talk about ownership, like, let's look at, number 11 on the map, Greenwood Village 3. And it says that own it, but it's the responsibility of an HOA. Is that because that was back when that we own it? Like, why do we own it?
Either way, it's when I emailed about it.
What's that?
I think it's when I emailed about it. Yeah,
So
go for it.
Greenwood Village is a very large project. It was a very large platted development. And part of Greenwood Village, one of the divisions of Greenwood Village, is Constitution Park. And when Constitution Park was developed, the property management company approached the city and said, we want to provide the recreation on these open space or these parcels. And so what the city did is we maintained ownership because some of those sites are shared stormwater sites, but they have a deed for recreation or an easement for recreation on that. And that is 100% their responsibility to upkeep. They paid for the playground equipment at those sites. Not all of Greenwood Village was developed in that manner. Oh, so there are other ones that perhaps the city owns, and they owned it as a stormwater detention site. But then the neighborhood approached, or in some cases built, recreation items on these lots that the city owned, but the city did not maintain for recreation purposes.
Right.
So some of those, and that's part of what Sarah has been tasked with, is to inventory. So what you're seeing here is the
Right.
fruits of that, is that inventory of, hey, what does the city have out there? And in some cases, you have to research every one of those plats. And so we've been moving through those, and part of it is also finding out from the community and the board, if you know of any, because there are some that HOA has been maintaining for 20 years and nobody knew. And then also properties that we've annexed from Snohomish County that had agreements that we weren't, that didn't come over, maybe annexation information. So.
What's the legality of these HOA run things? Does the city be responsible in any way at all? Or we're just using it as a property for the city? I mean, what if 3 kids, fall off and break their neck? I mean, who's going to be responsible, the homeowners or the city?
Well, that is something that we are looking at as part of this process. And what it really comes down to are making sure that your agreements are written properly. Essentially, you can think of it as a lease. If a business is leasing property and there's an accident on there, how does that fall out? And so that is part of this whole procedure, is how it is right now, which is what we first are deciding. And then we have, as a department, all of our notes to pull all the files, to analyze them and start those conversations. Is it going to continue as it has been? Is there anything that needs to be tweaked or moved in the future? And what does that look like? And there might be a variety of ways that looks like.
Okay. Well, I think this is an amazing piece of work. This is something that, I've seen in our chapter 5. We have We have it detailed out, but nothing like this. This is fantastic. So good job.
All the staff did an amazing job.
Yeah,
Yes,
good
they sure
job.
did.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments?
Just one thing, is it, obviously you're in the works of even getting it official and done, but then is it a yearly or a bi-yearly review? Do we know what that looks like, just to make sure that the good work doesn't lose steam, we keep it moving for years to come?
Well, the good thing is moving forward.
Right.
Now that we have an official parks department, it's gonna be that continual conversation with planning and what is coming in, what is being built, and sorting all of that up front and then adding to it in live time. So this will be a living, breathing document. If somebody comes to us and says, hey, you have a great piece of property and we want to do something with our neighborhood group, it gets added or modified if we go down that route. Mainly this will be used for our, what I call annual walkthroughs, our yearly inspections.
Yeah.
And that's where these amenities will really be cleaned up in the grid going over as we physically walk each one and make a overwhelming list of everything that might need to be addressed or our hopes and dreams for doing things in the future. This can be filled out with accurate amenities as to where they are right now, and then maybe what should be in the future will be another list. And that's how I'm going to build our work plan for the entire city park system and combine that straight into a 5-year plan. The city council did ask for a 5-year plan. The deadline would have been 7 weeks from yesterday. So we have a lot of legwork to do to get there.
Wow.
And that starts with a walkthrough on every single site and an inventory. So now that we have this, next week I get to start scheduling those walkthroughs with staff, and some might take 2 or 3 hours, others might be a 10-minute walkthrough. And then we'll have to go back and do full playground inspections and all that other stuff. that
What's
goes
the
into it.
process then, if we say, well, what about this neighborhood as a park? I mean, what did you do? Go in there and talk to the homeowners, or you just?
The first thing that we're gonna do, if you say, hey, I think there's a park you don't have on the list, send it to us. I will send it over to amazing Jill, and she will be able to look up all of the paperwork that comes with that land plot. Is there anything tied to it right now? We'll research who does own it. If it is owned by them, closed case, it's a private park in that case.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't include private parks. It doesn't include playgrounds or parks that are owned by HOAs or that are owned by school districts, anything like that, that we don't have any involvement with. That information will be extremely important as we get into our next steps of comprehensive and strategic planning, because if there are already 6 privately owned tennis courts, you don't want to now build 3 more right next door. We want to make sure that the levels of service are really spread out. And so this is all about ownership and management. And then all those other ones, as we start reviewing them, will go on to another list, because we know there's a lot of those out there. Now, the GIS map that we do have available online, everything's color coded based on ownership right now.
Oh, nice.
So one of that caveats is if we own it but don't manage it, it looks like we own it, that we're in charge of it. So we'll have to continually modify this. We have some decisions as a department over the next couple of weeks as to how to define that. And it'll have a lot to do with how many there are and if they're open to the public or not.
Anybody else have questions? Colton, Brian?
Nothing from Colton here. Thank you, though.
Yeah, not on this subject. Thank you.
And if you do have anything, please send it to us when you have it. Don't wait till next meeting. There's a lot that needs to happen in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, now we are on to the park update. Parks update.
Well, each one of the parks, I create the parks update and go through and talk with staff and we come up with the parks update. There wasn't a lot of changes on the actual park properties themselves. As we kind of went through in the work plan, there's a lot on pause or delayed or moving along as planned. And there wasn't a lot that happened between September and October. But we do have some updates on some events and recreation culture. So the film festival, at the time that the packet went out, it was going to be held last Saturday, but it was held last Saturday and had a nice turnout. It was the first time that that event had come to Lake Stevens. And so we have scheduled a debrief meeting to talk about it with the event organizer. The Lake Stevens Rowing Club will hold the Bull Trout Regatta. That's the 29th. There's one weekend in October that's really busy. So downtown will be heavily impacted by all good stuff. The rowing regatta will happen on the 29th. That's a one-day event. They will be at the boat launch down the Festival Street and I think a bit in North Cove and then in the water, of course. The Lake Stevens Farmers Market will return for the Harvest Market. That's on the 30th. So that's Saturday. And then, excuse me, that's Sunday. And then on Monday, the 31st, we will have the return of Harvest Fest.
Yay.
Yay, I know. We haven't had the Harvest Fest since 2019. It's one of our largest events that the city holds. And we have a lot of families that come down. The kids have a blast. It's an all-free event unless you're purchasing food. And we'll have a touch a truck event and we will have the PUD ARC trailer here. If you haven't seen that, that's a fun trailer. It teaches kids about electrical current and they throw an arc in the air and fry things like balloons and stuffed animals. It's fun. they really get into it and so do we. So we will have the kids parade will return as well. So we are back to kind of its original format. We'll have vendors that will hand out goodies for the kiddos. So, and a wonderful opportunity for anyone on the park board that would like to volunteer. If you want to let me know, and we'll get you hooked up with Dawn, who is setting up the volunteers for the event. All different types of things, but they're all really fun. So we won't make you swim anywhere. But if you have any questions about any of those events, please let us know. Coming up after Harvest Fest, November, we have a little quiet time, and then we go straight into Harvest or Winter Fest, which is going to be the first weekend of December. And it's a Christmas tree lighting. It's an evening, and that will be returning in its almost original form.
Nice.
Yes.
That's exciting. Okay. Anybody have questions about the parks update?
What time will the October 30th start and then October 31st start?
Well, we're going to start vendor load in at 2 o'clock. So sometimes it's great to have some volunteers help the vendors pack their stuff in. And then at 4 o'clock, the food trucks open to the public. And then at 5 o'clock, all of the other events, the touch truck and the kids parade will be at 5:15. And we'll have a lot of different opportunities to help out.
Yeah, it's an amazing event. Yeah,
And this, I don't know if our weather will hold, but boy, it's been nice.
hasn't it been nice?
It
Yeah,
has. We usually have pretty good weather for this.
that's true.
We'll see. I know there is some confusion. So if you hear of anyone that said, oh, it's a market, it's because they're one day away. And so there has been some folks that think it's the same event, but the Harvest Market will be on Sunday and then Harvest Fest on Monday. And it wraps up at 8 o'clock, just in case I didn't mention that.
Both events,
I'm sorry?
both events wrap up at 8 o'clock.
The Harvest Fest wraps up at 8 o'clock. Harvest Market, I believe, is during the daytime. It's an earlier, I think it starts in mid-morning and then it'll wrap up in the early afternoon.
And you said you needed help on that first day, the 30th,
On the 31st.
just the 31st.
And if you want to volunteer for the Harvest Market, I can put you in touch with Dawn and see if that works out better for you. But any of these events that you'd like to volunteer at, we'll do so.
Okay. Last call for parks update. All right, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Sarah. Board reports, Roger. Do you have anything you'd like to report? Okay. See, Maria, do you have anything? Okay, Dawn? Carl?
Looking good.
Really? No? Colton? Brian? Can you still hear me?
Question for me. Yep, I can have it for me, sorry.
Is that you don't have anything to report?
That's right. Are you able to hear me?
Hi, this is Colton. I can go ahead and say that nothing from my end.
Okay, go ahead. There's something from his end?
He said nothing.
Nothing from his end. Okay. Brian, did you have anything? I don't know why I'm looking up here.
Are you able to hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, so I have nothing to report, no.
All right. So there's no board member reports today. And it doesn't look like we have our council member here, so won't be a council report. Are there any upcoming agenda items that you would like to see on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, I would like a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned.
The weekend before this.
Okay.